As convenient as wireless headphones are, there's nothing like the reliability of a good old-fashioned cable. When I began searching for my own set of wired headphones, I eventually settled on the beyerdynamic DT770 Pros. And after using them for nearly 1.5 years, I can honestly say that, in spite of their flaws, these are some of the best headphones I've ever used. Here's why I think so. For starters, if comfort's your top priority, these are absolutely gonna fit the bill. I mean, if you were to judge the comfort based solely on the earpads themselves, you'd think that wearing these would be like sleeping on a box spring, but they're actually a lot comfier than you might think, and really they're not that bad with glasses either. The model I use has velour earpads, so they're soft enough to where you kind of forget they're sitting on your head. Plus, the ear cups are literally the roomiest I've ever used. They're super deep, and because they're circular instead of oval shape, they kind of give my ears a bit more room to breathe. They kind of make oval cups feel a bit narrow by comparison. The headband is a bit spongier than the ear cups, and it would take a really long session for it to hurt my head. It doesn't really disappear on your head like the AirPods Max do, but your head won't be hurting for a good while. One thing to keep in mind though is that the velour earpads won't exactly isolate sound as much as pleather earpads. When you wear these, you might hear a bit more of the outside sounds, and your music might leak out a bit more, but personally, I don't really mind this since it kind of helps me stay a bit more aware of my surroundings while I'm using them. But if you do want something that just isolates a bit more of that outside sound, then beyerdynamic does make a version of these with pleather earpads. More on that later. But it doesn't matter how comfortable these are if they don't have good sound quality. And in my opinion, these are some of the best sounding headphones that I've ever used. I wouldn't necessarily call them flat per se, but they're colored in a way that just kind of makes them feel unique and helps them stand out from every other option out there. There's quite a bit of top end, and if you like listening to your music loud, then they'll definitely have a little bit of bite to them. But the rest of the music is pretty flat, and even though there's not a lot of bass, I think they have just enough to be fun to listen to without making the rest of the music feel off. And that's mostly because the mids, bass, and sub-bass are basically flat right until the end, so everything pretty much has equal presence. Hey, I'm no audiophile, but I really do appreciate the way these sound. And a major plus is the spaciousness of the sound. Usually, if you want headphones that make music sound a bit more open, you would go for a set of open backs. The problem with open backs is that they tend to let all the outside noise in and all your music out. Now, you may not get quite the same level of spaciousness with the DT770s, but the general consensus is that the 770s are some of the widest sounding closed backs that you can get. And from my experience, I can definitely believe that. And as a final cherry on top, these are some of the few headphones that are actually designed to be fully repairable. The 770s are studio headphones, and one thing that studios find useful is the ability to repair headphones so that they can be used for as long as possible without having to buy completely new sets. I mean, mine still look practically new after 1.5 years, and from what I've heard about them, they can usually last for at least 7 to 10 years without ever needing to be repaired or replaced. Some of the parts can be unscrewed, and the headband itself can be snapped off. So if you need to replace any of these pieces, beyerdynamic makes it really easy to do so. But now comes the part that nobody likes. What do I not like about them? Well, even though I am impressed with how long these last and the fact that you can repair them, they're not exactly the nicest feeling headphones in the hand. They wear surprisingly well, and the arms are made of metal, and there aren't any folding pieces that could break, but the plastics and everything don't exactly feel super premium, so just don't expect anything like that going into them. And the cable also feels really nice. It's actually thicker than most cables I've used on other headphones, so it should end up taking quite a beating, but not only is it super long on the 80 ohm model, you can't ever replace it. So that means if something does happen to it, like it gets chewed up or torn or whatever, then you'd pretty much have to replace the entire set of headphones. That being said, people have done mods on their own sets to give them swappable cables, but it is a little bit of a DIY project. Plus, I do wish the included accessories were a bit nicer as well. The 1/4-inch jack is a nice addition in case you plan to use these for more professional applications, but the storage bag it comes in isn't exactly the most protective. It's basically just a thin nylon drawstring, so if you want something a bit more protective, be prepared to drop another $40 or so on a hard case. It would have been nice to see this bag have at least a little bit of padding or some kind of lining on the inside like what you would get with something like a set of Skull Candy headphones, but it is good enough if you don't plan to throw in a back backpack or anything like that. Now, if you do plan to get these for yourself, they do come in a few different options that have different amounts of ohms. Basically, the number of ohms determines how much power you need to drive the headphones. The more ohms they have, the more power you need. The 770s in particular have 3 different options, so here's what version you should buy depending on your use case. If you're an audio junkie who uses external DACs and amps, go for the 250 ohm model. Just keep in mind that these have a coiled cable, which some people don't really like. If you want something to use with your phone, your laptop, or for gaming, go for the 32 ohm model. Any device you have should power them, and plus they have a shorter cable and pleather earpads, so they should be a little bit better for consumers. If you're somewhere in between where you plan to use these for a little bit of professional work, but also for things like music and movies, then you should probably go for the 80 ohm model. These are the ones that I use, and I found that they tend to work really well for my use case. My M1 MacBook Air can power them pretty well, but if you do prefer something louder, you might want to go to the 32 ohm version or invest in some kind of external amp. Personally, I'm a huge fan of these, and if you're wanting to get these for yourself, I would highly recommend the 32 ohm version for most people. I'll leave an affiliate link in the description if you're interested, and if you'd like to see more videos like this, I would really appreciate it if you would hit the subscribe button. In the meantime, thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you all next time. Adios.